Hey guys, welcome to the channel. It's Jack with Stronghold Strength and Conditioning. And today, I'm taking you through my personal voodoo floss mobility routine that I use each week to help myself recover. But before we get into it, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Thursday, I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine. So take advantage of it. Ready? Let's go ahead and dive into this one. All right, guys. So today I'm taking you into my personal voodoo floss full body routine that I do one time a week to help myself maintain my overall mobility and help myself recover from my workouts during the week. And if you've never used voodoo floss before, it is one of my favorite mobility tools because it works on a multifaceted level. We're doing compression, so we get self-myofascial release, but we also get blood flow restriction. And then we can also directly affect the joint in certain areas, which is most of what we'll be doing today, is hitting the major joints along the extremities from distal to proximal so that we actually help with return blood flow and clearing out any damage markers from the training that you've been doing. So we're really able to use this at the extremities mostly, but it is an awesome tool to help with sliding surface dysfunctions and overall just repair and recovery process in our bodies. It does restrict the blood flow for a little bit, but when we release it, we get this reperfusion effect, which is awesome because that helps draw in nutrients to those areas that are trying to recover from your training sessions from the week. So this is a full body routine that I do one time a week, and it is geared at just a maintenance program here. So I'm trying to maintain with the most efficiency my mobility using voodoo floss. I also have one other routine which I'll link here and down below in the description so you guys can check out the other routine that I do. And those are the two mobility routines that I do every week to help maintain my body while I'm doing all this other training that I'm doing, which is how we keep things moving and functioning well overall. Now with the voodoo floss, there's a lot of wrapping and re-wrapping, as you can imagine. I will first describe how I wrap on that area, but then I will fast forward as we go through it to make that process and that part speed up a little bit. If you do not have voodoo floss and you want to follow along without the voodoo floss, be my guest. You are more than welcome to. You can still do this routine. However, it is geared at the voodoo floss use, so get your hands on some. It's a relatively cheap tool. It is like 25, 30 bucks for both these wraps. And really, it honestly is one of the best tools that you can use and have at your kit. So I would get some and just have it on hand, and this is how you can use it. All right, guys, we're gonna be starting down at the foot and ankle here. What I wanna do is anchor it right behind the metatarsals there where the toes will bend, and I'm wrapping the band over itself at around a 6 out of 10 on a scale of 10 as far as tension goes. Now what you'll see is that I leave the heel open and then transition up into the Achilles and calf here. When I get into the Achilles and calf, I actually increase my tension to a scale of about 8 out of 10. So I do want more tension in this area as I'm working there. All right, once we have both feet wrapped here, what we're gonna do is start to play with pronation and supination in a nice tall seated position here. So what I'm trying to do is touch the bottom of my feet together as much as possible and then open back up. And then I'll start to transition into some full circles at the foot as well. We're just gonna take ourselves through a few different positions. Part of the benefit here is just simply having the voodoo floss on, honestly, with that blood flow restriction. But as we move, obviously we help pump blood flow back through those tissues and help with that clearance. So here I'm doing a little toe extension work. This is one of my favorite ones because as we lose toe extension, that can be a huge issue upstream at the knee, ankle, all sorts of stuff can happen as the feet and the toes lose their mobility. So I'm trying to really keep that extension as much as possible here. And the voodoo floss will help, like I said, with any sliding surface dysfunctions where I'm restricted into getting into these positions by the soft tissues. Next, I'm gonna sit with a plantar flexed ankle here, trying to get my butt between my feet here all the way to the floor, nice deep sit. It also helps with some flexion at the knee upstream, so we'll get a little stretch through those quads. you'll see me going in and out of this hip flexed and hip extended position. That is, once again, loading the quads, bringing balance between the quads and the hamstrings. You can always try with the hands behind you. If you have the stability, you can do it with no hands behind you at all. And then we can also add in some squats and really any other movement specific positions technically with the voodoo floss. So here, just getting into a deep squat with a narrow stance, trying to keep my feet relatively narrow, which challenges the mobility of your ankles a little bit more when you're in that position. So just keep that in mind. The more narrow the stance, the more ankle mobility is required, and that is what we're going for. The last thing I'll usually do is some toe heel raises and dropping the heel below a level. I prefer to use a step, but for the video today, we're using the squat rack. Going to full extension, pressing through the big toe, second toe, and then dropping the heels as low as you can, grabbing that surface with the foot and letting it sink down where we can. Both legs, and you can also do this single leg. Now, anytime I re-wrap the floss, if it's on my leg, what I'll try and do is actually re-wrap it and re-roll it when it's on the leg still. So I take my time, I re-roll it while it's on the leg. With the arms, you'll see that I don't do this. I just unwrap all the way and then re-wrap the roll, or re-roll the wrap, however you want to say that, after it is off my arm, because obviously with our legs, we have a little more tissue down there, so the blood flow restriction is a little less effective. Or not as noticeable compared to the arms. But what you should see with the blood flow restriction is that there's actually some discoloration. We're not keeping the band on any longer than 5 minutes at a time, so it is a short duration that we do have it on, and that will be about your max. But we do want it on at least about 2 minutes as we work, because that's where we'll start to see fascial changes happening and occurring. All right, so I do alternate legs and arms as I do this, so I allow blood flow back in. What you'll see here as I'm wrapping the wrist is that I pin a small corner with my longest finger on the palm, right at the wrist there to start, and then I'm wrapping from the wrist all the way to the elbow, all the soft tissues there, not covering the elbow and not going into the palm any, but just right between those two. And my tension is at about a 6 to a 7 out of 10, so I do keep that tension in that higher range here as I'm working. And I'm gonna wrap both, but keep in mind, if you're new to voodoo floss, I do recommend that you just wrap one at a time, because you'll be able to make more of your time until you get better at wrapping, of course. That is the key. It takes long to wrap, or adds time to wrap. So if you're inefficient with it, just do one at a time right now. Pause the video. You can always come back and do both at a time when you get more efficient with the wrapping. All right, with our wrist and forearm mobilities here, you're gonna see these a few times. I use this as the band moves up the arm, because really I'm just working a few things that are important here. One is deep wrist extension. So here I'm really getting over the wrist. You'll notice my arms are straight, shoulder blades rolled down and back, elbows locked out, and I'm keeping the palm flat to the ground. So I'll do it fingertips forward, then I'll also rotate fingertips back toward me. And as the fingertips are rolled back, I try and bend the elbows toward my ribs in that position, while still keeping the shoulder blades down and back and still keeping the palm down. Now, if you can't quite get that without just the rotation in the first place, just start there, get the rotation. You don't have to add the bend till later. And then I'll also do the back of the hand to the ground here and roll up into those fingers, trying to get length through those wrists in the flexion position here as well. So once we get through all those positions, the last thing that I'll usually do for the wrist and the forearm is simply hanging. If you don't have access to hanging, you could also have a band anchored on a post and allow the band to pull at the wrist, but that is a similar effect that you can use in it as well here. So here, single arm hangs. You can also do double arm hangs if you can't do single arm, and just alternate your grip position. You can do pull-ups. Again, we've got options, but again, this is a traction through the arm that I'm trying to get here. Just allowing myself to pull through that arm, giving full length to all those tissues, and working through rotation. You'll see that I do rotate as I do this to get into the full torque of the shoulder and that idea of torsion through the arm. Next, we're transitioning back to the legs here at the knee, and I'm going to go subpatellar wrap just to start here, going over the knee itself. So I start just below that patella and I begin to wrap over it. I keep the band at about a 6 out of 10 on the scale of tension here, and then as I get into that suprapatellar range, that quadricep range just above the knee, I actually increase to about an 8 out of 10 on that scale so that I have more tension on those tissues. That is a common problem area, that suprapatellar area, basically the upside down U shape just above your knee, has a lot of issues when it comes to needing self-myofascial release and sliding dysfunction in that area. So I do increase for that reason there. Once both sides are wrapped, we're just going to start with terminal extension of the knee. So you'll see me flexing the quadriceps as tight as I can, trying to max out that flex, driving the back of my knee to the floor. And I should see my heel also elevate from the floor here. So we're getting that elevation of the heel as I flex the quads. If that doesn't happen, don't worry to begin with. Just know that that's something that should happen if you have full extension of your knee. If you don't see that heel raise, if you can't get your knee to the floor, the back of the knee to the floor, that's something to work at. The next thing I go into is some deep flexion, and this might be uncomfortable at first if you're not used to it, because you're going to feel that band wrapping beneath the knee there and behind the knee. But understand this, that if there's tissues that are not accepting the discomfort there, it's usually because there's some form of dysfunction at the soft tissue itself. So if that deep flexion causes a lot of discomfort, it's not the problem of the band being there, it's actually those soft tissues that are back there that need some work and attention. Here I'm doing another deep knee flexion position as I sit butt to heels, once again with those toes in extension, so you'll see that position again here, and going from hip flexion to hip extension, really getting those quadriceps to engage in this position. And then I'll also do that plantar flex position, getting a little bit deeper into that sit again. All about deep knee flexion here. So we're trying to put space at the joint. This is a way of doing flexion gapping. We can use bands to do this, like a pull-up band. We can use a ball back there. The voodoo floss provides a similar effect. And once again, we're drawing blood flow into an area that might not normally get a ton of blood flow. You think meniscus, think all those tendons in there and those ligaments that meet right at the knee itself. Those are all getting extra blood flow in this area. And now we're adding that squat in here. So we can go back into a deep flexion squat with the feet narrow again, do your regular stance, try a few reps, see how they feel, and just kind of sit in that position and get comfortable as much as possible. It's all about what you can kind of handle. And again, if the timing is a little bit off, I might have a little bit longer duration here because I've been doing this longer. You might have to take those bands off a lot sooner than I do in certain cases. Next, we're transitioning back to the arm. Now we're going to continue where we left off. So we're going to wrap at the end of the forearm over the elbow on this one. And you'll see, to get it started, what I do is I hang some of the band from the inside toward my body out away from my body. And then I trap that first wrap to get it going. Once it's trapped under itself and you have tension under that band, you can continue the wrap from there. Again, this one might be a little bit frustrating at first when you're first learning how to wrap yourself with one arm. It gets a little complicated, but you get better with practice and repetition. Every time I tie off the band, I should mention this, is that I fold it in a hot dog form. So I fold that band at the very end in half, and then I tuck the band under the last wrap that I did. And again, remember, in the arms, if you're not comfortable with wrapping yet, just do one side at a time. So you can pause the video here or go through the first round and then pause it after that and repeat it on the other side. All right, once we're wrapped, again, you're gonna see some similar positions. So here I'm working deep wrist extension, shoulders down and back. And now getting the elbow at full extension. Now before, when you tried this, you might have noticed that it was hard for you to get the elbow straight. See if you can improve that by really focusing on straightening the elbow while it is wrapped. If you ever notice any points of restriction along the chain of the arm or along the chain of the leg, that's where you want to target and really try and isolate with the wrap and use that wrap to help you get through those restricting points. Here I've got the fingers turned back toward me once again, and then my last position with the wrists here is with the back of the wrist to the floor, palms up toward myself, fingers facing one another. Always thinking about those shoulder blades, keeping down and back, making sure I'm in a good position with that, and always just kind of holding that position, rolling through some motion, and testing that out as well. Now here's some new ones here. We're gonna start thumb to floor and roll away from it. So I take my opposite leg toward that arm and roll away so that I get the bicep fully opened here, and I'm flexing the triceps. That's what you're seeing right here. That little pulse is my triceps flexing, and that is helping me open up my biceps on that side and my pec and shoulder on that side. So by engaging the triceps, we're bringing a little bit of balance into that, and I'll do that with the thumb down to the floor, I'll do it with the palm down to the floor, and now you'll see me in a 90-degree elbow position here, and I just do a little bit of a rock in that position, kind of testing out that shoulder ability to retract and depress, as well as getting that shoulder into a good position, opening up that chest. Same thing on the other side here. Once you get through those, I do hanging as well on this one. So again, you can do single arm, double arm, whatever you need to do. You can use a pull-up band to pull at that arm again, but the idea is traction in this position as well as torsion, allowing your body to rotate from the shoulder and testing out the ability of the arm to get into different torqued positions there, with that traction occurring at the same time. All right, the last range that we'll do on the lower body is high up at the hip crease here. So what I do is get that band started just below. It's gonna feel like you're wearing chaps, a climbing harness, however you wanna think about it. But I do go a full tension on this one, as tight as I can get that band, so 10 out of 10 on that scale. And I'm wrapping from the hip down toward the quadriceps, the middle of the quadriceps there. And here I'm wrapping over my shorts. What I'll normally do is go over my compression shorts below that, so I get a little bit closer to the skin level. But again, the better it is if we can get that skin to band contact, because that band grabbing is generally what allows us to get the self-myofascial release effect out of it. Still gonna get benefits here because you can feel that compression through the shorts. It's just a few extra layers to get to that skin. So if you're at home by yourself, you can do this one, even skin contact there. Just be careful that you don't grab any hairs. That is fairly uncomfortable if you do. I'll just give you that fair warning right now. All right, once we have those bands wrapped, we're gonna start with terminal extension of the knee. Here we're hitting rectus femoris, which acts as a knee extensor as well as a hip flexor. So I'm just kind of testing that with a few reps, flexing my quadriceps as tight as I can here. This is a nice one if you have any muscle soreness through those legs after leg day. It will help restore those, bringing some blood flow in through the leg high up at the hip. Once we get that terminal extension out, we go to some hip extensions here. I like this one because we can feel that band as those tissues pull through, moving from that high hip extension into that deep-seated hip flexion position, as well as the knee flexion there. And it also is something that works right at those high hamstring insertions pretty well. So wherever your soreness is, you can technically wrap that range. This is one of my favorite stretches here, the couch stretch, and you can do this one without a band, of course, but with the bands here, I've got the adductors captured in that wrap as well as my hip flexors, and they allow me to get more range of motion. This is usually an area where people are too tight to get into this vertical position of the couch stretch, but the voodoo floss will allow them to get a little bit more range of motion, a little bit more height in that position, because it neurologically deactivates those tissues a little bit, which are commonly overactive in most people. So the bands really help to get range of motion in this couch stretch position. What I'm doing here is actually flexing my glutes. It's hard to see from this angle here. Flexing my glutes, releasing them, and I'll even go into rotation to really test the range of motion that I have with those hip flexors and those adductors here. Now again, if you just did a workout, this might feel pretty tight. Take your time with it. But we're working on engaging the glutes at end range of motion, hip extension, really restoring that hip extension position here. You get to see it a little bit better with this angle now as I do that front side. Drop the knee in the corner, ankle and plantar flexion. Start in level 1 here, which is just hands to floor right in that position. Get a few flexes in that position. You can also go level 2 if it's too much to jump right up to vertical, which is, you know, placing your hands on a yoga block or a dumbbell or something that can elevate you a little bit. That is also a way to kind of go intermediate here. Now again, full vertical, you'll see the glutes flexing and releasing, and then I add that rotation. I am focusing on stabilizing that pelvis well, so my knee opens from that front leg toward the small toes. My foot is active on that front leg. I have good form, and I could technically do an exercise from this position as far as lifting a weight or anything like that. That's how I know it's good positioning. It's stable. And the last position I'm going to get into here is a little adductor rock. So what I like to do is use the width of my box to measure out my width a little bit. Open up those legs as much as I'm able to in that position. Should be about 90 degrees when my hips are in line with my knee there. And I'm trying to sink my butt back toward the box. I imagine my tailbone reaching for the box each time I'm in. But I want to make sure that I'm keeping my abs flexed. I'm focusing on my hip flexors pulling me into that hip flex position, and then my glutes actively driving me back out as I rock back up toward my arms in that position. Shoulder blades down and back, maintaining. This is a tight one for a lot of people, so just start slow with it. Alright, and the last range we'll hit today from mid bicep up into the shoulder here. So what I do is, again, drape part of the band over the arm there so that I start from the roll being inside and come around to the outside, and I can pin that wrap against my body as I get it trapped. Once it's trapped, then I can go ahead and pull with tension and keep it going from there, wrapping up toward the shoulder. Now you might have extra wrap on this one, and that's perfectly okay. Once you get into that armpit range, if you have armpit hair like me, I apologize, it might pull a little bit, but once again, you get used to this kind of stuff with repetition as you do it more. When we wrap that band up toward the shoulder, we do want to capture some ends of the deltoids there, so you're doing the best you can to keep that band from rolling on itself. It's not the easiest wrap to do by yourself, so if you do have someone that can help you, then by all means just let them wrap you. It will save you time and energy on that one. And for the last time, I will say, do not wrap both arms if you're not used to doing this, because we want to make sure that you're comfortable at first. Get used to wrapping one at a time, pause this video if you need, and then you can come back and finish here. All right, once we're wrapped, we're going back to some similar positions again. This time I'm doing something a little bit different in this position though. What I'm working is internal and external rotation since I'm right up at the shoulder there. I wanna make sure that that's functioning really well, that I can use those torques appropriately. So I do rotate the elbow out and then back in a few times while it's up at the shoulder. But other than that, the positions stay fairly the same, rotating the fingertips back toward me and sitting back, and then also rotating so that I have the wrists, so the back of the palm is down and my elbow is straightening from there. But in each of these, you can play with the elbow positioning and different rotations to see if you can open up any restriction that you might feel in that position. And from here, we're also going into those scorpion positions. So thumb to floor, flexing those triceps again. Here we're capturing the high end of those triceps. So you'll feel that band really working through, those triceps really working through the band there as you flex each time. And then just a few flexes each time, about 5 reps maybe per position there. Thumb down to the floor, palm down to the floor, and that half field goal positioning. All right, and the last thing we do here is one more hang. So testing that grip strength in a blood flow restricted state again, that full chain of the arm here with traction effect from the body weight. A few reps on each side and you have done it. All right, and there you guys have it. My personal mobility routine that I use Voodoo Floss for here, one time a week to help maintain my mobility and overall improve and speed up my recovery process from those workouts. If you guys like this video, make sure you let me know by clicking that big thumbs up down below, and take a moment to share this one with a friend that you know has not heard of Voodoo Floss before. So give them some love, pass it along their way. If you have any comments or questions about Voodoo Floss, about what I do here, please drop those down below in the comment section and I will gladly have those answered for you. And if you're here looking to improve your overall mobility and you have not already, make sure you take advantage of my 7-day mobility training challenge. That's linked down below in the description. 7 days, no equipment necessary, pre-programmed out mobility sessions that take about 15 minutes. And the whole purpose is to help you identify missing ranges of motion, missing flexibility, and any lacking stability or motor control issues that are hindering your performance overall, and pretty much setting you up for those training aches and injuries or reoccurring tightnesses that you just can't get out of. So I help you identify those and also give you a systematic approach to slowly work your way back out of those through repetition. So take advantage of that. You can sign up today and get started today in the description down below. Last but not least, before we go here, if you have not already, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Thursday, I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine. And it doesn't get better than that. Ready? Welcome to the Stronghold Army. Catch you guys next week.